Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. It's a privilege to be up here and to answer your questions and hopefully give you a little bit more insight about, what I would like to do or see happen in the city as we, approach our city commission election on March 6th. My name is Victor Snover. I've been a resident for almost 3 years in Aztec, kind of a newbie here, but I moved here to take a job at Aztec JROTC at the high school. I teach Aztec JROTC. I'm a retired military veteran, 22 years, and I live on Church Street. I bought a house in Aztec. I have a lovely wife of 18 plus years, 4 adult children, and I'm looking forward to serving the community of Aztec. Thank you.
My turn. Mark. Good evening. My name is Mark Lewis, and I've been in Aztec now for a little better than 29 years, and lived here first over on Ruins Road, and now over here in Lovers Lane. And I figured it was about time at my age to start giving back to my community. It's been a good community for me. It's been a great place to live, and I really love the community and the people in it, but I'd like to see it progress even further. And so I'd like to give any assistance or any of my experience to that extent. I'm not married. I do work. I work at Southwest Care Center. I'm a medical case manager. I take care of people with HIV and AIDS, and have for a number of years now, for more than a dozen years. I used to work for the Daily Times, as has been pointed out in the newspaper the other day. I was city editor and a reporter for them for a number of years. So I have a lot of experience. I do have a little bit of education, and I'd like to bring all that to bear to help the city. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll go on to Joel.
Thank you for allowing me to address this forum tonight and for you guys coming out. My name is Joel Barton. I'm a teacher at Aztec High School. I've been there 21 years. So I like to think I've been part of this community for 21 years. I've actually lived in Aztec for the last 13 years. Currently, I am living over off of Graceland by the ruins. The reason I'm running is kind of like Mark there. I always wanted to run for office. The timing was never right up until now, and I finally have a time where I can give a commitment and give my service back to this community. As a government teacher, often I tell my kids, you got to give back to the community. You got to serve the community in other ways. While I've done that as an educator, I would like to do it in a different forum. Thanks.
Right. And Sherry?
Hi, my name is Sherry Rogers. I'm the incumbent in District 5 for the City of Aztec for Commission. And as this is my third one, I feel like I should be a pro at it, but I don't feel like a pro at this. It's very good, though. This is the biggest crowd I think we've ever seen at one of these forums, and I think that's outstanding. People want to be out and be interested and be informed. So I ran the first time 6 years ago against Roberta and was beat up by 6 votes. And then the second time I ran unopposed. So I don't know if that was just like karma saying, okay, you lost the first time. I have thoroughly enjoyed these last 4 years serving as commissioner. I feel that I have been an effective part of the team, and it is a team, and it's a good team. I feel privileged to have worked with the people that I have. I'd like to serve again. I'd like to serve another 4-year commitment. I'd like to see some of the projects we've started get through, the arterial route, the hub, North Main project. That one really excites me. I'd like to see the staff supported and the infrastructure. A lot of the plans that have been put in place, I'd like to help the commissioners that are staying continue that along. I recently retired from a 25-year career at the 911 Center, which, as some of you know, taught me a lot of patience and a lot of endurance. Maybe that's not the right word, but anyway, I would very much appreciate and like to serve another 4 years as commissioner for the City of Aztec. Thank you.
Thank you. And Roslyn.
Hi, I'm Rosalind Fry, and I've lived in the Aztec area since 1987, but I'm sorry, 1997. I came to the area in 1989, and but my folks and my siblings came here in 1966. So I've been watching and been somewhat a part of the Aztec community for over 50 years. So I beat all of you as far as... I first visited here in 1963. My aunt and uncle lived here. And that year, I got the worst sunburn on Navajo Lake that I've ever experienced going out fishing with my dad and uncle. So I love the area. I'm the mother of 3 children. I have 6 beautiful grandchildren that are very important to me. And 5 years ago, I retired from ECHO as the housing director. You mostly know ECHO as a food bank, but we had a successful housing program that most of the homes were built here in Aztec or the surrounding area. Besides working at ECHO, I've served with San Juan County Partnership in substance abuse prevention programming as a grant manager and grant writer. And I've also worked for United Blood Services regionally. I worked briefly as a housing director for San Juan Center for Independence. And I've owned 2 businesses in Aztec. The current bistro used to be the Atomic Espresso Bistro. I bought that old building and put in a coffee shop. I also owned Tri-City Home Health that served the area for about 7 years. So I'm feeling like my experience with business and with my nonprofit community work can assist me to be a good commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. We have questions from the community, and in all fairness, I'll be asking the same questions as time permits. There's 5 of them that we have, and I'll be starting from one side, going to the next, and having you all answer the same. So starting with you, Victor, questions that's posted here is, what are your thoughts on how to make Aztec more of a tourist destination, i.e., what is your plan in for creating the arts in Aztec, or how do you think we could promote more festivals and or make the walkway down Aztec more inviting?
Well, that's a multi-pronged question, I think. But I think one of the first ways to start, and I know this is a controversial topic, but I think the arterial route, don't call it a bypass, the arterial route is key to getting, to slowing down and stopping the big truck traffic coming through town. I believe that's one of the first things that needs to happen. And from what I understand, it is on track to be completed sometime next year. So that, along with hopefully the pending metropolitan revitalization area designation that we just went through, and expect to hear some feedback, I believe in April, from consensus planning from Albuquerque, and then the folks that are on the commission will have the opportunity to hopefully adopt some of their recommendations and their plan to move downtown forward as far as making it a little bit more walkable, more inviting. Some things that I would like to see is, my opinion is, any way you can slow traffic down downtown, including the arterial, considering maybe making it 2 lanes instead of 4 lanes through downtown, adding a bike path, expanding our walkable trail system, things like signage, just letting people know where stuff is, because if we put the arterial in, some people will say, well, there's no reason for them to come through Aztec. So, something as simple as a sign might get someone to come down, and I just feel like there's ways that we can work as a community to kind of complement one another to help draw people downtown. I believe that we need to start looking at, maybe some food truck stuff. The community development city planner Steven Saavedra and I went up to Durango last week. Rosalind also went up with us, and we checked out some of the things that they have going on in Durango. 11th Street Station, the R Space, where there's a co-working space. Just trying to come up with new ideas and co-opt a little bit, take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and fit it to our needs here in Aztec, I think is one way to start making this a little bit more vibrant downtown community and accentuating our artistic folks here in the community as well.
Thank you. And do you need me to repeat the question for you?
Yes, please, if you would.
All right. So what are your thoughts on how to make Aztec more of a tourist destination? What is your plan for increasing the arts in Aztec? And how do you think we can promote more festivals and fairs, as well as the downtown section?
Oh, boy. Well, aside from what Victor said, to build on that, I walked the other day. I went out and toured the route of the new arterial, and I can't imagine a more torturous route, but it's already in the works, and that's there. So, at any rate, if we can get the trucks off of Main, that'd be great. Slowing down traffic is good, but then what? Well, how about, okay, don't stone me yet, but I'm in favor of the Sunday liquor sales, and even though it's not exactly connected to this commission race. Only because when you can have festivals or something going on a Sunday afternoon, that does draw in people right there. So even some of our existing businesses right now could capitalize on that, let alone expanding into other areas, such as, I believe there's a microbrewery in the works through the hub, or that's pen in the works. So those are things that we can expand on and help bring in more people. Those are the kinds of things that are working in other places. I had the opportunity to spend New Year's Eve in Ouray, Colorado, which is much smaller than Aztec, I've got to tell you. 600 year-round residents, but they had an incredible New Year's Eve thing because they had a microbrewery, a little pub, and they had something for the young people. I think they call it a rave bar, and they had fireworks, all kinds of things going on, and it was fun. I'm sure Aztec can pull off something like that. We just have to put our heads together and do whatever, and the commission should support it into whatever degree is legally possible. I know there are restrictions on that, and so we have to abide by the law, but I'd like to do whatever we could to bring in those kind of things to make it more user-friendly, especially for the young adults in our community. I met with some folks young adults who were telling me, gee, no place to go even on New Year's Eve. And that's a sad thing. So that's one way I would look at doing it, and slowing down the traffic and encouraging more entrepreneurial development, other types of businesses, not necessarily the big box stores. We don't necessarily want a huge big box store on Main Street, but I'd like to see more startup businesses, small businesses like we already have there, like Soaps on Main and Aztec Feed and a lot of others there, to the new optical shop and on and on. So let's encourage some of those to come in, and that's what we can build with. That's what people come and stop for when they see those little boutiques. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel?
Yeah, just building on what Mark and Victor said, I agree. If you finish out the arterial and stuff, we definitely need signage that would want people to come through the town. One of the other things I agree with is that we need to generate small businesses that want to open up specialized little stores and things of that nature on Main Street. One of the ways to do that, obviously, is this business incubator, the Hub, and I know there's been lots of controversy there, but if for some reason the Hub can't work out, we need to look for other ways to make that happen, whether it's giving some kind of incentives for businesses to move into the area, trying to attract, again, different types of crowds that actually want to stop and maybe spend a little time and not blow through. I think things like this are the kinds of things that are probably key and crucial if we want to increase tourism, is really getting people to want to stop. Yes, we have some fine restaurants and some fine businesses in town, but it would sure be nice to have more options, as Mark said, so that when people do come by, they really do want to stop. Because even an extra little restaurant here or an extra little shop there, if somebody's enjoying their time, they want to spend a little more time, and the next thing you know, they're going on to the next business or they're meandering on into the next restaurant, and feeding our economy through the tourism end of it. That's
Well, those are kind of hard acts to follow because they pretty much said everything. But I think a lot of the things they said really are important. The MRA study that we just did, a lot of surveys went out, but they had very little participation in those surveys coming back. So if you're still interested, the draft is not started yet. If you have ideas for downtown, that's an important place to go to provide your suggestions and something that can become a workable document. The other thing the MRA will do is also make more monies available to those businesses that want to expand and develop down there through grants that wouldn't violate the antitrust law. So the MRA is a very important part of redoing downtown. I did learn something I thought was pretty interesting through that. We have a problem with a lot of vacant buildings down there that are either too expensive to purchase or are not in a real good appearance like that. I understand other communities have imposed a vacant building tax. So, you could impose a tax on them for being vacant and then give them incentives for improving the appearance of it at least, so it doesn't sit there and just become vacant. I think all of our communities face that. I think everybody's looking at making their downtown more vibrant to attract more tourism, to get more people in there. And in addition to the business owners and the commission and everybody else, it also takes community involvement. It takes the support of the community to go in and support those businesses. Because if all they rely on is tourism, people coming in to support that business, it's not going to work. We can do our best to support those and shop local and do everything, but it has to be as a community to support that. And it is easy. It's easy to run to Walmart or to one of the big box stores instead of checking here first, but we really do need to support these downtown businesses. That kind of varies from tourism, but that kind of goes along with it, to keep that downtown vital and keep people here in Aztec.
Thank you.
Okay, you haven't said it all, so I agree with the local shopping and that it's just really going to be important because it takes a village. It won't, 5 people can't figure it out. And I hope when the MRA comes back, the consultants come back, that we have a much larger group of people interested in the recommendations, because I was kind of surprised that we didn't have much attendance there. They had some excellent recommendations. They're going to put all of it together and get back to us in April. In the months that have gone by since I decided to run, I've gone through a million things in my head about what to do, what can we do. And people that I've talked to have also indicated that volunteerism is seriously down in Aztec. It's going to take every one of us to turn things around for Aztec. We've got to, if you want more festivals, you got to help, and we need leadership that will step forward to help with those. Over the years, I've been there minimally to help with festivals, but I did cook an awful lot for that one. But start thinking about the opportunities that you can take for volunteerism that will improve entertainment and venues and festivals for our area, because we know or they'll start fading away. I would also like to say that I visited with Will Ann at the Visitor Center. I was very impressed with the literature, the maps, the things that are over there. If you haven't been there, stop by the Visitor Center. You're going to be impressed. She shared with me the plans. We need to support that. One of the things I've noticed is that Will Ann can't leave for an important meeting without shutting the place down because of minimal staffing. They've been very careful with staffing through this revenue decrease, but some of those things are affected, like the visitor center. We need to determine what has already been taken care of. Lots of great literature. Take your company over there. Take your relatives over there. Go on a tour of the arches. Go exploring in your Jeep, and show people what we have to offer here. You have people come in town. There are great things to see in Aztec. share Aztec with those. So volunteerism important. The MRA is going to give us lots of good feedback that we can use, and I think all these will help us improve tourism opportunities in the area.
Right. Thank you all. Appreciate that. Okay, so our second question, I'll start with you, Mark, and then we'll go down the line. Okay, so how can we attract more restaurants to our town, and or how can Aztec partner with existing businesses that will promote their success and growth?
As far as attracting new business and or lending support to a business that's restaurants that are here already,
And or other businesses that are existing.
and already that's a somewhat difficult thing to do because the city can't actively. You can only go so far in attracting a new business. They can discuss whether they offer. There might be some incentives they can offer, but I'm not sure exactly the extent of the tax type incentives they can offer. But that's the limit, pretty much. Because otherwise, it violates the state anti-donation clause. But it can make it. I think one way to attract new businesses is to present the city in probably the best light we can, and what we already have to offer. We already have some nice restaurants. We already have some nice businesses. Capitalize on that, saying, look, this is what we already have. Come here and take a look and see what you might like to do here, too. And that kind of thing we could do, I think. But and we have to be careful, of course. But, I mean, within reason, that's something we could do. As far as restaurants go, restaurants are an iffy business to begin with. They can be very difficult to get going. We've seen there was one on the west side that stopped and started several times and now is a daycare center. So they are difficult, and their profit margin can be small, especially the first several years. So I don't know what kind of incentives legally we can offer them, but I would explore what we could offer as far as letting it, whether it be a tax break. I don't know what kind of tax breaks we can offer, but that'd be something to entice them in. But as far as that, I know that's about most we can do at this point. Is to sell our city for what it is, but all the good things we have to offer, and go from there.
All right, thank you. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Please.
All right. So how can we attract more restaurants or upscale restaurants to our town? And how can Aztec partner with the existing business in a way that will promote their success and growth?
Okay. I think, again, when we're looking at the arterial route and some of those things, and I don't know the exact zoning and some of those things, you might want to try and promote some business out that way, but obviously the goal is to get people into town, to get businesses to want to come here. Again, I go back to it, you need some kind of incubator, some kind of thing that helps people get a start or get a push. It's again very difficult to start up things like restaurants and those kinds of things. They really do have a high failure rate when it comes to being successful. So maybe throw out there again, what do we have, what do we need, what don't we have that people would want to come in and see. I think, again, you go back to small entrepreneurial type businesses, and that's what makes the charm of a small town. People don't want to see the big chains and some of those things. They may want to see, though, certain chain restaurants and some of those things on the outside of town, but accessible for those who may be passing through. There may be people who don't intend to stop in Aztec, but want to take a quick route around it. So maybe we should look out that way as well.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I can tell you that it's been discussed at great length, not only in my term, but even prior to my term. And I know that commissions have tried to attract restaurants and additional businesses. And it does come back to the high failure rate. Again, an oversaturation potentially. You've got some people that would argue that maybe we don't need that many more restaurants in town because we need to support the ones that are here. So you get both sides of that issue. A variety is nice, but we want to have businesses that we can support and keep them open so they're not they're not struggling. Gosh, I mean, you guys have said pretty much most of it already. It'd be nice to have a variety. Again, do we have the community to support another 2 or 3 restaurants in addition to the ones that we have already? But 2 sides to that issue, so
Thank
that's
you.
my answer.
Okay, being in the restaurant business is dear to my heart because of, and I'm glad that the bistro is still there. Sometimes I don't know how it is. And it was 1999 when I purchased that service station, converted it to a coffee shop. I know firsthand how tough it is. What I think a lot of people are unaware of that may be interested in the restaurant business and all those empty buildings is there are negotiation opportunities for financing. If they're not savvy about where to get the money, I had no money when I opened that place, and had help from other entrepreneurs that said, move to Main Street, move to Main Street. So even when I sold it, I carried the note, gave the new owner 6 months to get started. And so if somebody's really aggressive about wanting to start a restaurant downtown, there could be ways to do that. So they need to, you know, I think the hub, the incubation facility that we're going to try to get somebody in there full-time to advise people can give advice like that about potential restaurants. Also, the MRA, because I was talking to them one morning about the fear of competition and that when you're the only coffee shop in town, you don't want another coffee shop to open on Main Street and draw your customers away because there's only X number of people. And they pointed out statistics showing that the more businesses that are in an area, the more it draws people in, so that competition actually increases the business in an area. I'm not sure about that. I probably would still be worried if I still owned the coffee shop. And so I think the MRA is going to have some good recommendations for us about how this can be developed in Aztec.
Thank you. And Victor, we'll finish with you.
Would you mind just repeating it one more time, please?
Yes. So how can we attract more restaurants, upscale restaurants to our town? And or how can Aztec partner with existing businesses in ways that will promote their success and growth?
Okay. I kind of touched on it earlier in the previous question about the trip and I mean, I think we've all been to Durango before, and I know Aztec is in Durango, but there are some things that we can, like I said, co-opt from successful places that have a vibrant tourism industry. You can't throw a rock without hitting 20 restaurants on Main Street in Durango, and they're always full. Now, I recognize we don't have the tax base at this time, but one of the coolest things that I saw in Durango, and I've been back there 2 or 3 times since because, one, the food is amazing, and it's such a cool concept, and I think we are ripe for this type of concept here in Aztec, using the business incubator, or hub for short, is setting up some food trucks in the courtyard. There's lots of people that have great concepts and great ideas. Every single person in here probably knows somebody that you've told at some point, hey, you should open a restaurant. You're so good at this. Your food is so good, or whatever. But who has $250,000, $300,000 to buy a building and then put a sprinkler system in, outfit it, put decor in, et cetera, and that's before you even open the door, print menus, food costs, servers, et cetera, et cetera. I waited tables for a while, and it's a tough business. But the food truck is one, and I keep going back to this 11th Street station because there's like 6 different options there. So the price of entry for an entrepreneur, while still not cheap, it's way cheaper than opening a brick and mortar type of place. You get established, you use the resources that we have with the business incubator, reduced rent, business help, classes, business plans, etc., utility breaks, things like that, and you get a following. and then you move that following, hopefully, into a brick and mortar place on Main Street. And I'm running out of time, but I want to tell a quick story about when I was in Charleston, West Virginia, that kind of fits this. We have restaurants, for example, the Bistro, and I'm not speaking for them, but they're closed at 2 o'clock every day. My wife used to run a nonprofit soup kitchen that the kitchen was about the size of the Bistro's kitchen. And there was a lady that came in and paid a small amount of rent to use that kitchen when my wife and her staff weren't using it. She would take that food, go to the local, in our case, like it would be like a $5.50 or something like that, have the pre-prepared meal so there wasn't health code violations, et cetera, restaurant kind of stuff you had to do. And they were able to use the facilities when no one else was using them. And I envision maybe being able to do something like that here and building some partnerships between some businesses that may be able to help, you know, like Roz did. She helped carry the note for a few months. Maybe a business like that could help, you know, help get someone on their feet. So, sorry, I'm out of time.
Thank you. All right, now we'll start with you, Joel. Are there any current city policies or manners of operation we'd like to see change? If so, what would that policy be, and what changes would you like to make to the policy or manner of operation?
Wow. Current policies, off the top of my head, I'm at a loss. I'm okay with the way most of the things are running right now. Not savvy, not having been part of any formal government or anything. I can't honestly tell you what policies run smooth and what don't. I understand how the process works and some of those things, but other than that, I don't have a real answer for that. Just being honest.
Sherry?
I currently do not have any issues with any of the policies at the City of Aztec. I think our staff does a great job. I think anytime there is a concern, it's immediately kind of brought up and addressed. I do know that the community probably definitely has some policies that, again, you have people on both sides of the issues. I know the sign issue, you know, advertisement, the way that people can promote their businesses and stuff like that is a huge issue. And unfortunately, again, you've got both sides of that. You've got people that want to be able to have, you know, big signs and advertisement. And then you've got another part of the community that wants to keep it more small town and not have the big signs everywhere. So I do know that that's an issue in the community. Again, trying to represent everyone's opinion is where some of the roadblocks have been, is trying to come to a conclusion on that. But other than that, I have no problems with any policies.
Okay, thank you.
I have not come across anything that I can really address to that question. I need to do more study and understand things more, and I haven't had anyone that I've talked to during my campaigning when I've asked them would they like to, you know, present an issue or a topic of conversation, and I haven't had anyone complain about they'd like to see something change. So,
okay. Victor?
Actually, a couple things. I don't think they're huge things. I think they're easy, and I don't know what the popularity of this change would be. I guess you'd have to ask the city staff. But I remember Dale Anderson, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Dale, mentioned this during one of the workshops for the MRA study a couple weeks back about potentially reopening city offices and buildings on Fridays. I'm not suggesting that we should necessarily be open 5 days. Perhaps we should be. I don't know. That's something we would have to look at and kind of crunch the numbers and see if, because to my understanding, and I'm sure plenty of people will correct me after this if I'm wrong, the reason we shut the offices down was to conserve energy. 4 10s instead of 5 8-hour days. In theory, it sounds good, but from what I've heard and what little bit of research I've done, it hasn't really saved us an exorbitant amount of money. So, I think one of Dale's contentions, and I tend to agree, is people want to come down. They come into town from different parts of the county that still live in Aztec to pay utilities or to do business at the county, and there's no reason for them to come into town on Fridays, which is the kickoff of the weekend. That's when your restaurants should be busy. That's when the hub should be packed. And you could come down. I mean, it seems silly, seems small maybe, but to come down and pay your utility bill, pay your, renew your driver's license, and then go grab a beer, go grab a bite or something like that, especially when it starts, the days get longer here in another month or so. And I think that's important for us to look at. Because if the money savings is worth keeping it to 4 days, maybe look at shutting down on, I know a lot of other cities, when I moved from West Virginia, in Charleston, a lot of the businesses were closed on Wednesdays or Monday. Maybe we could reconsider how we do it. One other thing is I really think we need to relook at having curbside recycling in Aztec. I know that's a sticking point for me, and I know it has also, supporters and detractors from it, and I appreciate everybody's point of view on that. But my point of view is if we want to attract younger professional family types and continue to expand our tax base, people buying homes and things like that, there are certain services that we come to expect. And even in Charleston, West Virginia, we're not talking about Boulder, Colorado. I'm talking about Charleston, West Virginia has curbside recycling. And I was kind of surprised when I moved here and that wasn't available. So things like that, I think, is worth another look. But thanks.
Thank you. And finally, with you, Mark.
Policies. Well, actually, for the most part, I think the city operates very well. There are always ways to make improvements. As a former reporter, I'm one of those people who believes in absolute transparency in government. I think we need to be able to get and I'm not saying the city has ever resisted that either, but I'm just saying it's something we must strive for it all the time, and it's something that helps keep faith in our government when you have that kind of openness, and I think we do. It's just that sometimes you have to ask, and sometimes you may not find out right away and things of that nature. And that's not a criticism; it's just the way things are. We can always improve that. And then he's stole my thunder on the curbside recycling, but I also agree with that. We're already paying for recycling center. It's not it's a few dollars a month, $3 I think a month we pay for the recycling center now. The cost differential can't be that bad. I'd like to revisit that if we could, simply because I think more people would be into recycling then too. Right now, if people have to box it up or carry it down to the recycling center, some people say, oh, next year. But we can do it now, and I think that's something that we could pursue now. The only other thing that I think that we have some things we need to be proud of. We have a chief of police has coffee with the chief every month, so if somebody has an issue, they can talk to the chief. How many cities do that? All of our city commissioners and all the city staff has been pretty open and available. That's something to be proud of too. But like I said, openness and transparency are crucial, and we can always make strides to make that better. So that's about it.
Thank you. All right, and we'll be starting with you, Sherry, for this next question. Currently, the city is in need of a city manager. If elected, what would your preferred timeline be to hire a new city manager, and what are the qualifications you would look for in this person?
Well, we have a really good interim city manager right now, and I think things have been moving along just as well as to be expected. I don't think he could do any better of a job than he is. It's not something he's been trained for, so I admire him for doing it. I can't imagine stepping into that role. I think it's important to get input. The people that will be working with them the closest, the staff, need to be comfortable with somebody that's going to support them and be fair and make good decisions. Our previous city manager, I always respected about him. He was always positive. Even when faced with challenges, there's always a way forward. And I'd like to find somebody optimistic like that. I'd like to find somebody that believes in this community. I'd like to find somebody that is vested in it somehow. So it's important to them that this community succeed too, not just for the 2 or 3 years while they might be here and then move on. I think it's important for them to to be vested in this community and have an interest in it. Somebody that'll be open and honest with both staff, commission, the community. Back to where transparency comes in, I think it's very important for that as well.
Thank you.
I think as far as whether this person should be selected right away, I agree. Steve just seems to be well liked and handling the job right now. I've heard people say that it might be best if the new commission is in place, comfortable, and knows what they're doing before selecting a new city manager. And I, too, think transparency, honesty, a love of the four corners in this environment would be great. Somebody moving in from a different area, I think we have so much to offer, and I would hope they would really educate themselves on the uniqueness of the Four Corners region and that governing for a small city. And this is particularly going to have challenges because of the economic transition we're in and the significant changes in revenue and the oil and gas situation. So I think someone who can bring us some creative ideas about economic development and diversification of our economy is going to be extremely important.
Thank you. And then you, Victor?
I'm just going to kind of echo a few of the other things and then maybe add a couple. As far as, I mean, we're going to need a little bit of time. You know, we assuming that we're, you know, some of us will be on the commission for sure. You know, unfortunately, it can't be all of us. But the important part is that we kind of get our legs under us, so to speak. And I do have the utmost faith and confidence in the city staff, the department heads, that will be mainly spearheading the search and providing us with, you know, the best number of qualified candidates that they can. I would like somebody that shares a lot of the goals and visions of the commission at the time when this person's selected. Somebody that has progressive ideas about how to make Aztec more attractive to tourists and citizens alike, and is willing to be transparent and work closely with whoever the commission, you know, members are, and help us, you know, kind of guide us through some of the pitfalls of running a city and making decisions, and, you know, preferably somebody maybe with some past experience in a similar sized city would be great too, that has worked with, you know, limited resources, maybe decreases in tax receipts and you know, financial resources, and is able to be creative and come up with exciting ideas as to how we can, you know, move our city forward on what, let's face it, is probably going to be, you know, not the budget that we would hope for, you know, but it's the budget that we're going to end up having to work with, and that we're going to, you know, recognize that there's going to be priorities that we have to focus on, and hopefully we'll all be on the same page what those priorities are moving forward, and kind of tick those off as we move through the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And then for you, Mark?
Having been through and watched the commission, not while I was on it, but other commissioners go through the selection process for city managers in the past, and I too have complete faith in city staff to winnow down the applicable candidates, the ones that best fit our city. And I personally would look for somebody with experience and knowledge of this area that would help. Knowledge of how to run a small city on what can be something of a thin budget at times, and that can be difficult at times, at best. And I also agree that once the new commissioners have been on the commission for a while, have their feet under them, as Victor said, or are more comfortable in their decisions, then they can look at making a permanent choice. But I think right now, our acting city manager is doing a great job, and we'll let him continue until such time that the commission can make a wise choice based on solid recommendations from the staff.
Thank you. And finally, Joel.
I'll echo some of that, but what everybody else said. But because it is such an important position, due to the fact that they have to oversee all the departments, they have to work with the commission and some of these other things. An immediate rush to just rush into that may not be the best thing, but I think as soon as, again, a commission is seated and very comfortable with what's going on, and the departments go through the searches and some of those other things, I would like to see it done probably as soon as, more sooner than wait. I've seen other things in government and stuff that get kicked down the road. And so, again, though, it being a unique place, this place being small, rural kind of town, it does have to have the right kind of candidate willing to make a commitment to want to stay and want to be in this kind of community. I agree with sharing the fact we don't want somebody using it as a stepping stone for another career. Sometimes you take that personal, and I've seen that happen in other areas. So definitely we have to be careful on who becomes the next manager, but I would actually like to see it done as soon as we can. I'm not saying it has to be overnight, but I would like to think that it would be a priority.
Thank you. And starting with you, Rosalind. The recent and significant increases in utilities are difficult for anyone on a fixed income. What is your plan to address this?
Okay. The increase in utilities was, affected me. I'm somewhat retired and I'm on Social Security, so I understand those who are struggling with a $20, $30 increase. I read through the financial information about the three utilities, and they made very clear that the electric company has decreased their cost and has benefited from the solar, and a new contract with Guzman where they're buying power. And I visited with Ken yesterday about future plans for additional solar, which can keep decreasing the cost of electricity. However, in the reports that I've read, the cost for the water and the sewer, the fees are not taking care of the cost of those services. So in essence, the electricity has had to subsidize those two utilities. It's pretty clear to me that the city has been really trying to whittle down cost and watch overhead and decrease the number of positions in the city, and to the point that I have personal concerns about the employees and the stability of wages, because I've also been told that the wages are not competitive for the other communities. So, given all that information, I would definitely be watching for new information on the budget and how we can control the increase in the fees, because it appears that may have to happen in order to keep the water and sewer at the same quality and taken care of as they need to be. So I don't have a solution. I do have a deep understanding and appreciation for the fact that our utilities are expensive, and I will promise to watch and evaluate that very carefully and talk to everybody involved to see about ideas to try to keep a lid on future increases.
Thank you. And then to you, Victor.
Utilities, it's just one of those things. I mean, we have to, things are going, inflation happens, repairs, expansion of our utility. it's a necessary thing. So there is going to be obviously an inherent cost to that. When things break, you have to fix them. And hopefully we are being proactive enough, which I'm not for certain how. I know some of these rate increases have, from what I understand, have been kind of pushed off a little bit over the last several years. And it's just one of those things that it's unfortunate. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that hurts. And I'm sensitive to that, but to be able to say that, I can wave a magic wand and suddenly utility rates are going to drop through the floor again is not realistic. I think, one, it's important to be transparent and honest with the citizens and say, look, this is happening. You are, going to have rate increases. It's not easy to have to absorb that, but I think one of the biggest things that maybe upsets people in anywhere in America, but especially here in Aztec, is if you kind of know why your rates are going up, if you can explain and articulate, well, we're raising rates because we have to fix this, or repair this substation or put a new substation in. We have to keep up with repairs to the sewage system and to the water lines. We have to try and get Reservoir 1 back into operation. So this is what it's going to cost, and this is why you are having to pay an extra $12 or $22, whatever it may be, and to continue exploring and expanding our use of renewable energy. I think that's one of the biggest keys going into the future. Extractive energy is becoming much less viable than renewables. It's becoming more expensive comparatively, speaking especially of electricity. How many times has it rained in the last 2 months? We need to take better advantage of our dry, sunny, hot climate here in New Mexico, and I think expand our use of solar energy. And any chance we get, we need to explore the use of renewables. I know that we've talked briefly about even getting a trash incinerator as an alternative power generation station. So anything that we can do as a commission and as a community to look into options and to borrow ideas from other similar sized communities that are doing innovative things, I think is the direction we need to look into.
Thank you. And Mark.
Okay. This is a thorny issue for a lot of people, it's true. However, as they said, as others have already said, it's unfortunate, but if one utility is subsidizing another, you can't lower utility or electric rates if it has to pay for the water and sewer. Basically, is what it comes down to. And also, Aztec has already made great strides in moving towards renewables. And so a lot of the energy we get does come from either solar or hydro or a wind, which is wonderful. But our water and sewer rates haven't kept up with the times, unfortunately. It would have been great if 30 years ago, 25 years ago, the commission had said, we need to increase slowly, incrementally over the next decade or two, a little at a time so it doesn't hit people really hard. Unfortunately, it didn't really happen like it might have. And there's the costs of maintaining a water treatment plant, of treating the water, the costs of the sewer and the EPA requirements for maintaining that sewage treatment plant. Those are all increased. I'm afraid I don't have a magic wand either. I can't wave it and say, cheap. I can't do that. I'm afraid we're going to be stuck with a little bit higher costs. Just by comparison, my sister lives in Rio Rancho, and her average water bill in the wintertime when they're not watering outside is $120 just by itself. So we're still not as bad off as some others in this state. That's something to be thankful for. So maybe if we can find a way to augment or to do it incrementally a little at a time, that'd be nice. But I think the rates are going to be a fact of our futures.
Thank you. And Joel?
Trust me, I know how hard that hits some of you. Just that little bit can be a lot in the pocketbook here and there. You can't avoid the fact that sometimes you have to fix infrastructure and some of those things to make maybe down the road to make sure that if we have properly running stuff, if our infrastructure is more sound, as Mark is talking about with sewer and wastewater and some of those other things, these decisions don't become so tough. While renewable sounds good at times and some of these other things, it can also be extremely costly to start it up. Over time, as Rosalind was saying, the electricity and I don't know this for sure, I'm just kind of going off what she said as far as the electricity going down, the solar was supposed to offset that. At times, it was a little more expensive. So it depends really on what the community wants as far as long-term planning. If you long-term planning renewables and some of those other things, the cost is probably going to be greater now, but down the road, fix itself a little bit, make it better. But we definitely have to look at ways that we can try and keep money in your pockets, including mine, and move forward without trying to have to up utilities at every turn.
Thank you. And Sherry.
So the other candidates have been very eloquent, and I appreciate everything that you said. You brought up some really good points. It becomes whether you're going to be proactive or reactive when it comes to your infrastructure and your utilities. Do you want to wait and have to come up with everything all at once to fix something that maybe you could have been a little more proactive about in the beginning? I have the unique perspective of knowing that the city staff and commission put a lot of effort in working with a consultant, and I know for a fact that our rates have come down for the electric part of our bill. They were able to even compare and show, my bill now versus my bill then, and the electric rates have gone down. It's the water and some of the additional fees that make up that difference that have brought it up. I don't think there's anything different they could have done for the electric. I mean, it was negotiated pretty seriously, and that's when they added the solar in and tried to offset a lot of that. So I respect a lot of the work that they did on that. I've heard varying degrees on how much more expensive we are than the city of Farmington. I was just talking to Rob Mays the other day, and he says that there's still a 20% difference between us and them. And I am by no means calling him a liar, but I would like to see that comparison for myself, and I plan on doing that. I believe that we've got some pretty competitive rates right now.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm taking a look at some of my notes. I guess that's about all I have to say. I think the city's been very responsible and very respectful of the fact that nobody wants to pay a higher utility bill, including myself. I'm retired now, and that kind of eats into my play money as well. But again, it is kind of a fact of life to fix the aging infrastructure to stay. I know we need a new electric substation because I don't want to go through another 8 hours of no electricity while the city of Farmington has to fix something within one of our facilities. So I think that's important to look forward to.
All right, thank you. All right, and we'll start with you again, Victor. How do you feel about city spending on economic development during the downturn? Do you think we should stick our head in the sand or aggressively seek out business opportunities for growth?
I definitely don't think we should stick our head in the sand. I guess you'd have to define aggressive. I think the folks in our city planning office have been rather aggressive. I've spent probably more time with Stephen than any of the other city or department heads. And, it seems like every time I think I have this great idea, I'm like, hey, what about this? And he's like, yeah, we tried that. I did that months ago, I've been in talks with so-and-so. So I feel like he's already been fairly aggressively trying to attract businesses here, attract economic opportunity. But to answer the question, I think we should continue that approach because we have to do something here. The energy industry is not going to be able to sustain us forever. We're living through that right now. It may bounce back for a little time, but it's going to be temporary. So we have to start thinking, you know, beyond the end of our nose or the end of our 4-year term or the end of this next commission meeting, because we don't want to get stopped at the bistro or stopped at Aztec Restaurant and beat up by somebody because of a decision we made. We have to think about what is the best thing to do going forward, not just next year, but 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and how we can position ourselves to maybe we won't realize that success for 5 or 10 years. But looking back, hopefully the folks that are sitting up here 10 years from now can look back and you know, like the ones that are going to be getting elected here in the next couple weeks, and maybe look back and thank Mayor Burbridge and the commissioners that were with her and say, hey, we appreciate you kind of laying the groundwork. And now we can, you know, instead of starting from scratch, we can just kind of pick up the baton and maybe do the next piece sort of thing. And I think the key here is getting a couple of wins under our belt economically. You know, we get a couple of, like, you know, I keep kind of referring back to 550 at the hub. I think they're a pretty big success story right now, and it's something, it's cool to be able to reflect on that and say, hey, you know, the hub hasn't maybe been the huge exploding success that we had hoped, and we've learned from it, but we still have something pretty awesome coming out of there, and we can build on their success. We can, you know, realize what we did wrong with the incubator going forward, make adjustments, put the marketing budget in there, staff it, and, you know, hopefully attract some more success breeds success. You know, you get a couple of big wins under your belt. You see the hub, maybe, or I'm sorry, 550, maybe they move into a Main Street building and somebody else is like, hey, you know, they did it, I can do it too. And, you know, a lot of little factors might come in and just fall into place at the right time, but we have to keep plugging away and trying to do the best we can to grow our economy here in Aztec.
And time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for you, Mark.
Well, the only thing you get from sticking your head in the sand is this unburned backside. It's not, no, don't stick your head in the sand. We have to move forward, build on what we have, first of all, and be as aggressive as we possibly can in recruiting new business or supporting the ones we have. That's part of it. Economic growth, and it was mentioned during the downtown meeting a week and a half ago about the more businesses you have in a cluster, the more traffic you're going to get for those businesses in that cluster. So if we have a business here, a new restaurant here, and something else here, and so on and so forth, those businesses all benefit. So if we can be aggressive and point out the benefits of clustering on our Main Street and showing that, hey, this can be a future, and making use of the hub, the business incubator. I'm not particularly familiar with business incubators. That's something I really do have to learn about. But if it's a way of really bringing in new business and attracting new ideas and new entrepreneurs, I love the word, that's one way of doing it. Let's be aggressive in doing that too. Let's make it work for us, for heaven's sake. We don't want to turn into a ghost town for sure. And I think we can turn that around and can create a better economy for everyone involved and throughout the entire city using that.
Thank you. And Joel?
Yeah, I agree. You can't just stick your head in the sand and turn away from opportunity and some of those other things. What I would look towards maybe is reaching out to business owners, kind of seeing where they see their success, how they built their success, and see if there's some models that could be followed to help maybe some businesses that are starting up either in a hub or as an incubator kind of situation. But I'm often not sure how often we're reaching out to our business owners who are already existing in the community, some who have been here for many years. And so that's kind of, I think, a good viable option to continue to pursue economic growth when there's no money there. If somebody actually has a good plan or something like that, or a good idea, it would be good to be able to refer them to somebody who's had success in this community in order to have them come in.
Thank you. And Sherry?
I'm going to disagree with my counterparts just a little bit. I believe that we already have a very aggressive agenda when it comes to economic development, not only in our city, but also in our whole community area. You know, Aztec's got the Economic Development Board. Our mayor pro tem, previous city manager, everybody has tried really, really hard to find ways to diversify and to build our economy in this area. And there's no magic wand for it, but I believe that we're honestly doing almost everything that we can right now. You never know where the next good idea is going to come from, so obviously we want to keep it up. But, you know, we've got Four Corners Economic Development. They have conferences, they have experts that come together regularly and discuss how can we diversify this economy. And there is no clear answer right now. There's just not. But I believe that we've been fairly aggressive to this point, and we just need to continue it and hope for more success. I think the hub is a great place to start, both as an incubator and a term that I learned recently, whether you can incubate a business or help to expand the business. So being able to do that, you know, maybe somebody's got a small business, but they just don't know what's the next step or how to expand that business. And I think our hub, once we get it together, can help with that as well.
Right.
And I think that's really the basis of it. I just don't want to take anything away from those people that have been working aggressively on that to this point, including some of our local businesses, our chamber, everybody working together on the Economic Development Committee to make that work.
All right.
You stole a couple of my lines. I definitely think it needs to be a regional collaboration because it's not just Aztec in this game, it's the whole area. And I went over and talked with Judy Castleberry last week and found out the different involvement of people on the commission that have been working with Four Corners Economic Council. So there are things going on. I look forward to participating in those and broadening my own understanding of what the possibilities are. And also, Judy was very informative about how the hub could work, how we could work with them, and supporting the idea that we definitely need a full-time person at our hub in order to reach out and benefit from the activities that are going on at San Juan College, even financial opportunities. What I also found out is that there are grant opportunities that can assist at the hub if we become state certified as an incubator. Between what I gained there, what I've read online, and the visit to the R Durango, I feel more comfortable with we have an opportunity with our own hub to make it work, and two, as Joel mentioned, having successful business people that will counsel businesses in Aztec that are possibly struggling. It's like I would be happy to sit in as a past business owner to recognize even my own mistakes and don't do it that way. So I think there's a great opportunity at the hub. The economic councils that are around us to get the experts' advice on what to do economically here. Yeah.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask the audience if there's any additional questions. If so, please bring them to the podium. During that time, while you're bringing those up to the podium, I have a question that was proposed to give a little bit lighter side to the evening. And I'll start with you, Mr. Mark.
Oh, God.
So, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek. I'm a Trekkie since 60-something.
Mr. Joel?
Star Wars.
All right.
Oh, Star Wars all the way.
Star Wars.
All right.
Yeah, I have to say, I remember when the first one came out, I was 7 years old, and I was so excited when my parents took me, you know, because the nearest theater was 40 miles away, and they took us to see Star Wars, and it was the greatest thing ever. I still remember the poster on the marquee, and so yeah, definitely Star Wars.
And if anybody needs to know, Boba Fett's my favorite. All right. Have any other questions? Or? Oh, okay.
Oh, God.
Could I just state it, maybe?
I prefer that you write it down.
Okay. Go right ahead.
How about those Eagles?
Those Eagles really did it,
That
didn't
was
they?
awesome.
Yeah.
That was exciting.
It'd be much easier for me to just state it.
Well, but then if they have to repeat it for another candidate, they may not repeat the same question. That's why you might do
Do we have to give good reason why we picked what we picked as far as Star Wars?
Well, if you'd
Star
like to,
Trek?
go for it. Start with you, Mark. Why are you a Trekkie?
Why am I a Trekkie?
Well, I'm kind of like Victor over there. I got my first real big theater experience watching Star Wars, and I believe I was 77 it came out,
Yeah.
so I think I was about 3? No. I think it was about 11 years old.
My
No,
youngest.
8. I was 8.
Yeah.
I'm not giving my age.
Mark was a senior in college.
I was 20
I was
when
right.
Star Wars came out. Yeah, we were close. You were close. But I started with Star Wars or Star Trek back when it first debuted.
I wasn't alive then.
I was alive then. Proudly so. Yes.
Oh, we have several questions. That's exciting. I'm almost out of water.
We're losing them. Somebody tell a joke.
Once upon a time, no.
Clean one. Let's keep it clean.
Here you go. You give away with your age without saying. What president was president when you were born?
Well, JFK had just been shot 7 days before I was born.
So it was Johnson.
So it's Johnson, yeah.
The world was still in chaos.
1970, so I guess it was
Nixon.
Nixon, yeah.
Eisenhower. Truman? Yeah.
Who in here was born when Clinton was president? There's probably a couple.
How many? Yeah.
Not many.
Some of the young people
I would
know.
like to say something positive. Has anyone gone down on Main Street and noticed we have lines?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And yellow.
I noticed that this morning.
It just looks so professional and pretty. Just that one little thing, I was like, yay. So whoever did it, thank you.
It was Victor.
Okay.
We have more questions
The
coming.
action,
in.
yeah, the action is picking up.
Okay.
Oh,
the best one so far.
Shame on.
As far as him.
yeah.
Yeah, just, yeah.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
But
No, I feel like I'm
Oh, Petty John wrote a question down and then he left.
Uh-oh. He might not. There he
Oh,
is.
no, he didn't. He's making the rounds. I always said, tell Zach he should be Aztec. He's kind of the unofficial mayor of Aztec, I think.
He is. He's like,
He knows everybody.
oh, I know. He knows more people than I do. That's amazing.
Am I going to be able to pick those nameplates up? Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I'll swing by on my way to school. Yeah, it's kind of warm in here. My face feels like it's super red. My cheeks are hot.
We're just making sure there's not duplicate questions, so just give us a sec. Sorry.
How long have you lived in Aztec?
You're next. Uh-oh, Kiwanis is here.
We'll have to look up the name of the word that was written down.
Well, I moved to Durango in
Great
89.
penmanship, by the way.
Yes.
I got tired of it. So then I came down here in
Having mixed
97.
feelings.
But, you know, like I say, my folks came in 66, so I've been visiting forever. Oh, so this is, yeah, I'm Texas.
So because we've got quite a few questions, we're just going to ask one question per candidate.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Uh-oh. I think,
You guys can't copy each other now.
The game is on.
yeah.
Give me the easy one.
All right. So since you went first, Mark, for the funny question of the day, would you like to go next, Joel?
Sure.
All right. What is your opinion about city-wide Wi-Fi as part of our utility? How do you feel this would help our economic development?
Well, currently, since I just came from my house and my Wi-Fi wasn't working and I don't know why, I actually think it's not a bad idea. Wi-Fi, it seems like, depending on where you live in the city, can be very spotty or finding a good service and some of those other things. And if you look at the cost of what it costs, it would be interesting to see basically what, it would be interesting to see what it would cost using it as a utility as opposed to me getting it on my own and each individual getting it on their own. If we could actually get guaranteed decent Wi-Fi service citywide. So I would be very interested in seeing what that would cost and seeing what it would take to get that kind of idea done.
Right. Thank you. Sherry, when on the commission for an extended period amount of years, I discerned that decisions are usually made out of feelings or by looking and evaluating facts. How do you primarily make your decisions where you stand?
So, I've always been the kind of person I like to try to get the whole story, not just one side or the other, but the whole story. And it's been very eye-opening and surprising to me how people don't really care to share that opinion publicly because they don't want to get shamed by one side or the other. So I've listened to every single person that's contacted me by email, by telephone, and I can honestly say that once or twice it's actually kind of swayed me an opposite direction from what I personally felt for it, because you do speak for the community and the citizens of the city. So.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Roslyn. One of our Aztec citizens said that they don't think anyone has mentioned a big reason that they moved here was outdoor recreation. What would you do to develop outdoor recreation in Aztec?
I think we have a lot of opportunities here if we really evaluate the river, our proximity to Navajo Lake and San Juan, and then the new recreational activities at Farmington Lake. I'm pretty impressed with those. I'm impressed with our trail system and the newly discovered arches of Aztec that when they came out with the brochure, I picked up one and found out a lot of them were within 30 minutes of my house, and so I was pretty impressed. Bicycling is, pretty active here, and I know the trails and organization wants to expand trails. I've watched the bridges go up for the walking paths. I've watched the sports complex expand, because my grandson started over there when most of it was dirt. And I'm just, in the park system, I'm impressed. Now, I've talked to young friends that are really interested in rafting and maybe accessing the Animas. If it gets water in it again, that would be helpful. I did talk to Willan about the rafting and some of the barriers that have been blocking the possibility of rafting here. So I think we're pretty strong, but what I would encourage the young folks in particular is to come before the commission and with your ideas about what needs to be done. And I think more and more people need to bring their ideas forward so that we know where people are headed. Like I was campaigning recently in Pioneer Heights, and a young couple said, how can we get a park in Pioneer Heights? And so I talked with Steve about that. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but I was glad that they mentioned to me what they would like is a neighborhood park there, because we've got a great park system. So people need to express their particular interest, and it'd be fun to have a balloon fiesta here, don't you think? So.
All right, thank you. Victor? How would you inspire more community involvement and less community ambivalence? It's one of those, it's a great word. Ambivalence.
Yeah,
Ambivalence. There we go. I was
That
trying to
would
get
be
it out.
ambivalence,
I had
right.
it in my head. In city government.
Okay. That is the $64,000 question, I think. I've asked it myself, and you know, there are resources out there that, you know, even somebody that has been coming to commission meetings in preparation for campaigning for city commission, there's still things that I'm like, oh yeah, you know, it's right in front of my face kind of thing. And I'm no webmaster, you know, website designer. I do feel like, you know, and this is kind of a small thing, but I think user friendliness is key for things like our websites with the city. Maybe I'm just not that user friendly myself, but I think our website's a little clunky. But it does contain a lot of information. But, you know, maybe streamlining that a little bit, being able to know how to access the information. I think it's extremely important for the new commission to build on the successes of past commissions and to take the opportunity to get out and do our best. And I know this is, you know, again, it's one of those things that you hear time and time again, be accessible, be involved in the community, go to events, answer questions, you know, take phone calls, take emails, things like that. And I think that our commissioners do try to do that. And it's just one of those things where we're going to have to, I think if we get a couple of wins under our belt, I've said that a couple of times tonight, we get a couple of wins, we start improving the downtown area, we start doing a couple little things here and there, we get the North Main project underway, and people will start to get more involved. You know, success breeds success. It's not just a saying, it's true. And I think that will help with folks being less apathetic with their government. I think this is a testament right here tonight with all the folks that came out here. I think this is a great start. You know, we get a little momentum going, and I think that we have even brighter days ahead of us as far as working with the community and getting them more involved with city government and getting them more vocal and being, you know, present at commission meetings. You know, there's plenty of resources out there. Sometimes we just got to take 5 minutes on a coffee break at work and dig into the website a little bit and call Steven Saavedra, call the city manager, call, you know, anybody. They're almost always pick up the phone and they're willing to answer your questions. So I think it's a two-way street. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And Mark. There's been a lot of talk about tourism. What would be your plan to encourage professional, responsible new citizens to our town?
Encourage responsible citizens to our town? Okay. So as residents, I'm presuming. Okay. Well, for one thing, as we've mentioned earlier, when we start having a few, as he said, a few wins under it, but we have more to offer these folks who want to move to a place. Nowadays, a lot of people are moving because they like the place, not just because they have to work there. So if we can show Aztec at its greatest light, that's one way to encourage people to stay here. We have offer up, what do we have that we can offer them? Good schools, safe community, a number of other things. But what are we missing right now? A little nightlife wouldn't hurt. Things like that. Especially with young adults, they want a place to go out. They don't want to be couch potatoes all the time. And even the outdoorsy ones who want to go hiking occasionally want to stop off for a beer or go down to the little cafe and have a nosh. Pardon me. So the more we can encourage those kind of businesses to be here, to cluster here, the more we're going to attract the younger professional crowd who are looking for places like Aztec. They're tired of the cities, some of them. They don't want to move to someplace that's crowded, a lot of traffic, a lot of noise, a lot of crime. They're looking for someplace to put down roots and grow out from them, and a lot of them can work from home. So if they get the Wi-Fi in place, hey, maybe they can work from home. I know there's fiber optics that are available. Make the best use of that too. There are a lot of pluses we have here. And our cost of living still, overall, is not that bad, especially compared to our neighbors to the north. So we can play on that card as well. Play all of these things. Use all of our resources that we have to encourage people to put down roots here. Because a community is not made up of just children and old folks. A community is made up of young people who are vibrant and leading and growing. And they help carry us into the next century, or the next 50 years. So, in other words, I'd focus on all of the good things we have to offer and build on the things we don't, and try to encourage the things we don't have here to come in and offer themselves for the community.
Right. Thank you. At this time, we'll start with your 3-minute closing statement, and we will start with Sherry.
All right. Focus my little thoughts here. I kind of used it all up in the beginning. I moved to Aztec. I was born and raised in Farmington. I moved to Aztec in 1996. And to be honest, I really didn't know that much about Aztec before I moved here. Once I moved here, I fell in love with it. I love the community feel. I love the small town feel. I love the sense of security and safety I feel when I'm here. The people, I just feel the people are much more friendly. I did move away to another community. I won't name them so I don't get in trouble. And lived there for 3 years. And I saw the stark difference in the quality of life that we have here in Aztec. The parks, again, a lot of people have referenced the parks. The downtown area, while it does need revitalization and additional to it, it's still a vibrant downtown. And we've had festivals down there. I remember coming over for Oktoberfest. That was a lot of fun. And the Fiesta Days in the park and just different little things. And so when I had the opportunity, I moved back to Aztec, and I knew that that's where I wanted to live because I do love it here. I like being a part of the community, and I would like to have the opportunity to continue to be involved in decisions affecting the community, to be whatever help and assistance I can be to move Aztec forward even more than it is now.
Thank you. And Rosalind?
I want to thank everyone for coming out, and I have so appreciated the warm reception I have received in running for office, and I want to do a great job, and I want to give back to the community. I think I have acquired a lifetime of skills that can benefit as a commissioner of Aztec. I love Aztec. When my folks first moved here and they just fell in love with Aztec, the people were so warm and accepting, and it was a town at that time that had Utton's Dairy, and they delivered you milk to your door in a glass bottle. Maybe a few of you might remember when there was an Utton's Dairy and there was a Crane's grocery store that you could charge your groceries and wait till payday to pay, and it always smelled like really great barbecue. The neighbors brought stuff over when you were sick, and anyway, that same community is still here. My boys live in Phoenix and Portland. Mom, come live closer to us. Well, come to Aztec. It's too hot. It's too wet. And I just love it here, and I would feel very honored to be elected and serve as your commissioner, and I thank you for this opportunity this evening.
Thank you. And Victor.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for, I see a lot of very friendly faces out here. Friends, colleagues, I've got some students, former students in the audience, a little bit of everything, and some kind of new friends that I've met in this process. So thank you again for coming. I think it's been great. I enjoyed spending the evening with these folks and with you all. But I moved here originally in 2012. I retired from recruiting in the Army in April of 2012. I worked for the infamous ITT Tech. Maybe you've heard of it. It's anyway. I swear I almost cried every time I came home because I felt so bad about about what they were doing to some of these people, and I couldn't take it anymore. I quit. I was a registrar. I did scheduling and counseling and like guidance counseling kind of stuff. I made it about 7 months, and I started looking. I got certified as a JROTC instructor, so I literally looked up Aztec on Google and made a phone call, and I ended up moving back for a couple of years. I've been an East Coast guy all my life, and I moved here for the job. That's what brought me here, and I stayed here for folks like you guys out here in the community. Like I said, I see a lot of friends out here tonight, and I have never in my life lived anywhere, and I've lived all around, up and down the East Coast in my military career. Have I been in a community that I felt as good and as welcome, and people are as friendly as they are, as if I've lived here for 25, 30 years, and that's why I'm still here. That's why I've stayed. We've, I think all of us can say that we've invested in the community. We are invested in the community, either as, Rosalind's businesses, Joel teaches at school, Sherry's a retired 9/11 operator, I'm a school teacher, Mark helps AIDS patients. I mean, we all do some pretty cool stuff up here, and I think every one of you can say the same thing, and I think together, if we put our noses to the grindstone and we work with one another, because we don't have money coming out of our pockets, we have to rely on each other and the resources that we can each bring to the table with hopefully a little bit of money to get some of these things done and make this place a little even better place to live, work, and play. And I think we're heading in the right direction. So thanks again for everybody for coming out.
All right. Thank you, Victor. And Mark.
Wow. When I moved here in January 1989, I came here for a job with the Daily Times. And at the time, the publisher, Elliot O'Brien, who some of you may or may not remember, required that I live in Aztec because Aztec is the county seat. Okay. So I'd never lived in a town smaller. Actually, I'd lived in Clovis, which is small. But Albuquerque was the smallest city I'd lived in. I lived in Los Angeles, a few other places. So I came to Aztec in 1989, and I said, oh, wow, what am I going to do here? Well, 30 years later, I love it here. I did start to really love the community. Once I got to know the people, I'll never forget the first day in the office. We had an office here on Main Avenue, and who bounced in the door but Tweety Blancett? That set the tone right there. Okay, bouncing in, very friendly, very efficacious, or effusive, I'm sorry, and we loved it. And then from then on, it went up. It was fine. I met some wonderful people, and some of you are out in the audience even. And it's a nice place to live. It's I know all of my neighbors. I know every one of them. They all know me. We watch each other's homes when we're not home, that kind of thing. I know the next street's neighbors. Now I know somebody on the other side of that street. I know you get to know the entire community here, and that's why I like living here, and that's why I want to bring what I can to the community to give back. As a reporter, one thing I learned to do was listen to all sides, and to not pass a judgment until, and even then, I was supposed to pass a judgment on what I heard. So I heard from this side and from that side and the plus and the minus from both sides. And then I would report it. But you also got a really new perspective on a lot of things, as Sherry had mentioned earlier, that you do hear from things like that. And I've been told I have a talent, a gift, whatever, that I can listen. I know how to listen. So if people want to speak to me, I can certainly listen, and I do listen to as best I can. And I promise that I will continue to do that from here on out. If I'm up here on the commission, I'll still do it. I'll do it even if I'm sitting down there. But whatever happens, I'll still be listening on both sides and trying not to pass judgment until I can collect all the facts. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joel.
Okay. Something I like to do is, as a teacher, often, and so I see some former students here as well, I often like to ask them, how many of you plan on leaving Aztec forever once you're done with high school? And it's amazing how many hands go up. And then I proceed to tell them, how many of you think you'll come back later in life and make this your home? And I still get a pretty good amount of people raise their hands saying, no, I'm out of here. The amazing thing I see is, for whatever reason, they come back. Because this is a place that is like family. I like to think that I didn't choose Aztec, it chose me. And it's amazing when I have family and friends come down and they meet my friends from here and the people that I hang out with, the people that have supported me, because I really don't have direct family here. They always like to say, God, you have an amazing Aztec family. It's incredible. So they're very impressed. They're very impressed with our little community, our town, and I can't think of a better place to live. I did choose it, but I still like to think it chose me, because something drew me here, something kept me here. And for the longest time, like I said, I've served the community as far as a school teacher, but I want to serve the community as far as the city goes. I have utmost respect for the commissioners who are currently serving, because it does take time and a commitment to do this job, and so I don't take it lightly. I think for me, it's my time, my chance to give back to the community that has given so much to me. And I just can't say enough about how much I really love being in this little town, even when I have immediate family not with me. That's how much I love where I live. That's how much I love this little town. And again, I see some familiar faces that actually started teaching with me. So, anyways, if I'm lucky enough to serve you guys as commissioner, I will do my best and give my best effort to do best by what's best for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the privilege. Thank you, candidates, for allowing me to come up here and read these questions. Thank you for the town of Aztec for allowing me to come up and do this evening. I will now turn this over to Terry.
So I just also wanted to thank all of you guys for coming out tonight, and also citizens, thank you. I just wanted to remind everybody of some important dates. The first day of early voting is February 14th, so before you take your person out to dinner for Valentine's Day. Also, March 2nd is the last day for early voting, and election day is March 6th. So, thank you all.
One other thing, can you tell them where early voting takes place?
Here.
There you go.
Here at City Hall.
Yeah.
So thank you, good night.
It's pretty unforgiving.
Well, that's why.
I like being in the middle. You don't like being in the middle? I know.
Things I really want to talk about.
We got
some pretty good questions. It seems like the audience usually comes up with some good ones because one question will trigger somebody to think of something else that they want to ask. Yes.
Makes you wonder. Yeah. It's warm enough in here.
Oh gosh, I know. That's how it gets sometimes during meetings.
Okay.